Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Code. Today, I'm with Thomas Gobeil. Hi, Thomas.
Hi.
Former hockey player of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League.
Yes.
His professional journey seamlessly connects elite sports with holistic wellness. We're going to talk about that today. After fracturing his jaw during practice, he had to stay silent for 4 weeks, which must have been really tough for you.
It was an imposed retreat, yeah.
And you took time, so you went to a Buddhist retreat.
Exactly, in my bedroom.
So you took time to connect with your inner self, shaped by your own experiences in the demanding realm of elite hockey. You gained deep insight into the mindset of high achievers. Your background in athletics paved the way for your venture into cutting-edge mental and physical therapies. You're the co-founder of EI Activation and Elite 3 Agency, revolutionizing how athletes are developed and managed in the sports industry. Through EI Activation, Thomas concentrates on optimizing overall performance by fostering emotional intelligence, a pivotal aspect for personal and professional advancement. And through your work, you aim to empower individuals to reach their full potential and excel both on and off the field. Meanwhile, Elite 3 Agency, under your leadership, provides comprehensive representation and management services to athletes, guiding them through every aspect of their careers with expertise and dedication. And your training and experience enable you to support athletes on a sporting level, but also in terms of mental and emotional approach. Thomas, you're also the instigator of a Canada-wide class action lawsuit that was a subject of a $30 million out-of-court settlement. So we're going to talk about that today. I understand we can't go into all the details because this class action lawsuit is still before the courts, but I assume we can still discuss about the overall how it led to that. So in this episode, we're going to talk about who you are, Thomas. I think the listeners are interested to learn about your journey, personal journey, professional journey, also what led to the class action lawsuit. So maybe we can start with that. Do you want to provide us with a brief explanation of the class action lawsuit, which is a national lawsuit? It's a big thing, and the role of WAPU also. We'll get into that.
So, well, thank you for the introduction.
Yep.
It's a little bit awkward sitting through it, but it's learning how to receive. So just to be clear, WAPU has no standing in our class action. So basically, they were mentioned in the new class action that was intended in New York on February 14th. Yep. As far as our class action goes, it's a class action about wage and hour theft. Basically,
WAPU is the World Association
of Ice Hockey Player Union.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like a new union, or because people are not really familiar with WAPU and their role.
So they've been around for a little while, but they have different divisions. Their main one is in Europe, and the man that founded WAPU is actually a European lawyer. And he's done some great work to help, advocate for the players' right in soccer in Europe.
Okay.
They have different divisions. I'm not too acquainted with the details of WAPU, but yeah, they're basically what I know about them is they were the ones who found it very interesting legally to look at the status of hockey players around the world, and especially. In major junior hockey here in Canada.
Because we know that, the NHL players are represented by a union, by a players' association. But when you were a junior player, there was no such thing as union representation. And it seems that WAPU is taking an interest as maybe some sort of a union to defend the rights of those players who don't necessarily fit into the professional model.
Well, I think what WAPU sees is an injustice and a legal error. I think that they're trying to remedy. But like I said, they're not involved in my class action. Right. It's not like I'm collaborating with them directly. I know of them, and so our class action basically.
Yeah, tell us about the class action. Yeah. How did it started and.
Yeah, so basically I played major junior hockey, and during my years, there was a movement that was initiated by George Larocque to create a syndicate for the players. Because when you play major junior hockey, it starts with a draft. And you're a minor when you get drafted. And basically that's how the major junior hockey teams acquire rights as a player. And then, you know, from the perspective of a player, it's just like you're just happy to be selected. It means you have a certain potential in the future, and you don't necessarily ask yourself those questions. You're not really aware of the legal situation and the business side of, you know, acquiring players' rights and trading them, or giving out, you know, releases to allow player to play in different leagues. You're totally unaware of that. So the class action, basically, because of that awareness that was raised due to that movement for the syndicate, basically it's during my hockey tenure, my major junior hockey tenure, we were employees. Basically, we signed.
What years was that around?
That was I played from 2011 to 2014, if I'm correct. And basically, we signed a professional contract, an employee agreement. We were on, how would you say, chômage l'été?
Unemployment.
Unemployment, yeah. And also, basically, we were under regulation as a standard employee, meaning as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, it's not like I could leave. For example, I was drafted in Baie-Comeau. It's not like I could leave Baie-Comeau if I was unsatisfied and go offer my services anywhere else, because they retained my rights as a player. And in our contracts in the major junior hockey, which you know, the way we sign those contracts is we get into the locker room, and one day there's just like one paper on our locker, and they're like, these are your contracts, and what we understand is we have to sign them to play.
Okay.
But nobody told us what we were signing away. You know, we believe.
And you're a minor at the time.
And you're
under 18.
And basically, you think you're just you don't understand the modalities of that contract. You have no idea what it entails. It's only years later, during, you know, this whole process, that I was able to like put my hands on a contract and read it. And there's things in there like, if ever you want to like go play in another league, you have to pay a $500,000 fee to your team for a release, stuff like that.
Really? Okay.
Yes. So it is a solid contract.
Yeah.
It is an employer-employee contract.
Do they ask for your parents to co-sign it, or
no?
Because you're a minor, you have no authority to contract. I mean, here's the lawyer speaking.
Yeah,
but,
right.
So technically, this contract is.
Well, the question's very interesting, because also if we talk about the draft, and maybe I'm bridging a little bit the conversation towards the U.S. class action that talks about that, but from a lawyer's perspective, like, how is it possible that they acquire the rights of a hockey player who's a minor through a draft he didn't consent to? How does that work?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, isn't it? So, for our class action, basically that's what we claimed is we're employees. We go away from home. We have a dress code.
You're paid.
We're paid.
I mean, you're not paid a lot.
Small amounts.
How much are you paid?
So in my time, it changed since then, because this problem was brought to the surface a lot, and they changed everything, and also the status of hockey players in Canada, they changed. The legislation was changed as well. So when I was 16, when I played, the 16 and 17-year-olds were making $35 a week.
Wow.
The 18-year-olds were making $50. The 19-year-olds were making $75, and the 20-year-olds were you would only be able to have 3 20-year-olds on a team, and together I think the rule was something like the team could give them close to $2,000 divided the way they wanted for each player. So the 20-year-olds were making money, like a
little bit more.
A little bit more, yeah. But some of them could make
split 3 ways.
Yeah. So and that's a week.
Right.
So some of them could be making $500 a week, but that was as a 20-year-old only. So, and what they said is, we pay for the gear, we pay for the billet, and this and that. But parents still have to pay. Like I had a credit card. I was a minor, so I had like a credit card that my parents would pay to allow me to like go to the grocery store or to the restaurant or just to have some financial freedom.
And meanwhile, you're with Hockey Junior, so junior hockey. The clubs are private organizations that make money selling tickets and sponsors, and so
they also used, you know, as a player, that's something that was cool is when you played video games, you were in the EA Sports games, you know, but you don't understand that they actually sold your name, your rights to allow EA Sports to have your name in. So it's interesting, you know, what we said before they changed the legislation is, hey, listen, we're employees. We can prove it. So why wouldn't you have to abide to the federal regulations as to how, you know, how is it that we do not have protection as hockey players, as an employee? Mm-hmm. And then came into the question that we were students, and then, you know, there was a lot of debate around that. But the point was still like there are many students who have a job, and in their job they're protected by the same federal laws. So that was our issue. And during that process, basically, like I said earlier, the legislative laws were changed, and so. That's what happened.
So at the federal level or provincial?
At the provincial in the three provinces in Canada.
So Quebec,
Ontario and Alberta.
Yeah. Okay. So they changed when they. Do I assume when they woke up and they said, "Okay, hold on, there's a gap here," or
yeah, for sure. Okay. Like I think it was in 2019. So you know this class action.
So they changed the law to specify that you're not employees, right? Okay,
exactly.
So they closed the gap in favor of the clubs or the league.
Yes,
all right,
100%.
That's interesting.
But what that did for our class action is still, you know, the members of our class. Then we're saying, okay, well, you changed it, fine, but we were employees when we played. Right. Essentially, that's the issue.
Because the law was not retroactive in scope, so then there's a period of time for a few years where.
So what it does is our class action cannot and will not change the status of hockey players that are currently playing in major junior hockey. So that's out of the question. It was one of the core motives at first to get a behavior modification tool implanted so that players would be protected, or you know would have a way. You know, recourse if anything happened, you know, and so our class action is closed from 2014 to 2019 for our members solely. So they're the players that play during that time. Right. I might be a year off or something like that.
How many players are we talking about here?
We're talking close to 5,000 players, 4,500 in Canada total.
5,000?
Yes.
Players affected by this class action.
Yeah.
So there was a deal for $30 million.
Yes.
And then what happened?
So
the deal hasn't been endorsed by the court to this date, correct? And today we're February, because this may be listened to in the future. Today we're February 23rd, 2024. May be resolved in the future, but yeah.
Exactly. We accepted a deal with them. It was refused by the courts because of the wording.
Okay.
In 2020. Essentially, what happened is the courts realized that the way the settlement was phrased, it would discharge the league for any other type of lawsuit outside of wage and hour theft for all of the members, which the courts said, you know, was unacceptable, because basically the 4,500, 5,000 or 5,000 members that we have that are in our class action. Well, we're only, you know, this deal was only for wage and hour theft. If any of them, you know, lived through abuse, there were other issues raised. There were other class actions that were brought to the courts. The Kobe Moore one, I think, was about, you know, the physical injuries and the concussions and this and that. So many of our members were part of that class action as well. But if our settlement was accepted, then they couldn't have gotten, you know, compensation for those ones. So the courts refused it, and they sent us back and said, you know, rework the phrasing. And what happened is for 3 years, nothing happened. Which
and if we go back in time in 2020, I think that's about the time where the whole thing about Hockey Canada and the exploded.
A lot of things changed
about the 2018 World Junior Championship that's before the courts right now and before the criminal courts.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a judge somewhere who sort of turned the light on and said, well, hold on, if I agree on this settlement, then it means that
I'm preventing members from having their day in courts for a totally different issue.
Yeah.
And if I am not mistaken, without reserve, the what lit up that bulb in the judge's mind is the Kobe Moore action. And if not for them, maybe
what's that? Kobe Moore.
Kobe Moore is a player who filed that action with Anthony Poulain.
Okay.
And so it's
for abuse.
Yes, abuse or concussions.
Okay.
The initiations and the harassment.
Okay.
There's a word for it, but I forget.
Mental and physical abuse, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So essentially, because they filed, then it came to the judge's attentions that's my understanding that if I accept this one, then these guys cannot have their day in court. So really, these guys we were kind of saved by them. So what happened is for 3 years, as a co-rep, because I'm not the lead plaintiff. I'm a co-plaintiff here in Quebec with my partner Lucas Walter, who played in the queue but is from BC, from British Columbia. So essentially, nothing happened for 3 years in our class action. Really, a lot of inaction from our lawyers, which basically I think what they did not want to jeopardize the deal. But then a federal governance review investigation was done, on Hockey Canada by the federal government, and we figured
after the big scandal of
everything.
There's a public inquiry, public commission. So the CEO, the chair, and a bunch of people were called to testify under oath in public. So then you learn a few things.
A lot of things.
What did you learn?
Of things. Well, what I learned is, the CHL has always had this narrative that they were giving that money to us when we were employees out of the goodness of their hearts. That they did not have the financial means to pay us the minimum wage. That is this, that's just regular federal law when you're an employee. And basically, we learned that that's not true. We learned that the CHL is a very lucrative business. We learned that they are funded by the NHL. And so it brings us into question as to whether that $30 million deal is a good one or not. And I think that's as far as I can go. I think you can feel and sense my position, and that's a little bit where we are right now. Is this deal still a good one for the members? My job, my legal duty is to represent the members and get them a deal that they want. And the question is this deal a good deal or a deal that the members want?
Because, the 30,000-foot view from my perspective is that, there's an agreement that came into play for $30 million with the position from the other side that, that was a generous offer given their financial constraints. Yeah. And then the public inquiry came following the scandal of Hockey Canada. We learned publicly, this is no secret, that there was a slush fund, that there were segregated funds over and above what Hockey Canada had in their account, and also the CHL.
The CHL was it's because the CHL was a beneficiary of that fund. Okay. And there was over $100 million in that fund.
That you didn't know about.
That I didn't know about.
All right.
And so, to me, my personal feeling is, we were unaware of that, and we accepted this deal thinking, because we have and I've said this, I was on the radio of George Larox's show, and that's exactly what I said. I said, this is not against the CHL. It's not like I had a great time playing major junior hockey. It's but this is for the players. Yeah. And this $30 million, which we thought, they didn't have, and they were helped by the insurance. And But then we discovered that they have access to over $100 million fund, which a percentage of those funds came from the World Juniors, where exclusively major junior hockey participate for Canada.
Right.
So those players, they contributed to those funds. They want to be paid. They want to be compensated. And so that's...
And we can say also the public contributed to that because
100%.
They bought tickets and sponsors significantly.
Yes.
We're not going to name them, but there's a lot of sponsors with the CHL and
Yes.
World Junior Hockey Championships.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. So where are we at now in February 2024? So the deal is being reopened. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So the deal has been signed. And what happens is it was signed without the knowledge of this new information that we're talking about.
You're talking about the $30 million deal in 2020, right?
Yeah, it was signed. It was agreed upon.
Yeah.
So it's still a valid contract. It's a valid legal contract, and the judges have not refused the amount. They sent us back for the wording. So now the legal question is this deal still acceptable because it was signed, it was agreed upon? But, in 4 years, a whole lot has changed. We cannot act like 4 years doesn't change anything, I guess. So from my perspective as a plaintiff who represents those players, my question is there motive for renegotiating that deal? Is that deal still good? So what I want is just to represent those members and give them, a settlement that they'll be happy with. Mm-hmm. That'll be fair for them.
Obviously you are carrying the voice of about 5,000 players, but you're not talking individually to all of them. But what is the general sentiment between those players who interact with you?
The players could not. So $30 million divided, and so it's not like $30 million is going to the players. The lawyers are taking a percentage of that. And so the money, without getting into the amounts, it's a very small amount of money compared to, if we were talking about minimum wage for all of, let's put it at 40 hours a week, for all of the years that those members have played in the league, the amount of money that they would receive with that settlement is very minimal. Mm-hmm. It's not comparable. And so for the players, the members that I have talked to, nobody wants it because the amount of money is just, it's insignificant for them. It doesn't change anything really. And they have no sense of, that justice was served.
Now that if we go back in 2020, they were probably, okay with it. Yeah. But now that they know that there was an extra 100 million now, I guess
it's basically, if you put yourself in the place of those members, they were exploited financially. That's our position for years, and you have to understand as well is there are a lot of challenges that players went through playing major junior hockey. You're billeted, you're away from home, we're starting to become aware of the abuse, that is present in the hockey world. So it's not like it was just like a blessing to play in the major junior hockey. Like that's how they kind of portray it, but it was work. It was real hard work where we sacrificed our bodies. We dedicated ourselves to the organization. We did want to have a career in hockey. And yes, the CHL was kind of a stepping stone, a platform of visibility for us. Great. But we worked. So essentially...
And I think, and that goes back to the class action lawsuit that was filed in the U.S. recently over the past couple of weeks. You had to go through... there's no choice. They call it a cartel. I'm not going to label it like this, but it's an anti-cartel law in the U.S. 100%. So if you're 15, 16, 17 years old, you're a junior player, and you want to follow the stream to the NHL, there is no other way, as a Canadian, than to go through the obligatory CHL route, right?
Well, there is, but you're not aware of it, and one thing that I learned during those last 10 years, is that when you play midget AAA here in Quebec, and you get drafted by a major junior team, the midget AAA team receives financial compensation as a means of encouraging and compensating for the development of a player that they will use. So
Which is a formula we find in European football and so on, and in other sports.
And just to give you my testimony is when I was playing midget AAA when I was 14, because Hockey Quebec changed the age groups. So I was 14. I was in my third year of high school, and I was contemplating the idea of going to the U.S. to go to prep schools and play maybe university college hockey in the U.S., NCAA essentially. Mm-hmm. So I was aware that there was another route. Okay. But it was my draft year as a midget AAA player for the CHL draft. And those prep schools that came to see me play, and those schools that came and talked with my head coach became aware that I was thinking about it. And then I had a meeting with him, called me in the office for the only time during that season, and basically asked me what I wanted. He said, "You want to be a student or you want to play in the NHL?" And I said, "I want to play in the NHL." He says, "Well, you probably should go play major junior hockey then. Because,
and not go the U.S. NCAA route.
Yeah, that's more for students. That's more like because you want to get a degree. But we think you have the potential, and if you played in the CHL, well, maybe you could make it to the NHL. So
that's because his club is not getting a kickback. If you're going to the NCAA, are they getting anything back in return?
No.
Oh, all right. So there's an incentive there.
So
and you're 14 years old.
Yeah.
Your parents are more or less there, or
they're not in that meeting.
They're not in the meeting.
And it's not like as a parent, unless you go through it with your child.
Yeah, and you're aware.
And you're, you don't know. You really don't know. But you just understand, how does a coach, graduate the echelons of hockey? Well, they have to if they get to midget AAA hockey, they make a name for themselves by getting players drafted.
And then themselves as coaches, they can escalate, and ultimately
they have to bring value.
Right.
So essentially, for him, taking me on his team and developing me, and me, refusing to go to the CHL, it's I personally think that, it would have been still good, to say I'm helping players go play everywhere. But to me, I cannot affirm that that's what happened, that was his intention. But to me, it's clear that the incentive was there, and it was better for him to get money into the program and have
we're not saying
drafted.
He gave you wrong advice. We're not saying that.
We're just saying there was the incentive.
He didn't give you the option.
Yeah.
Or he didn't open the door to the option. And
to the
there was a clear incentive for both for him professionally as a coach to further his own career.
Yes.
And for the club to get a compensation
100%.
From.
So as a coach, if he can bring money into the program because he's getting players drafted, he looks like a coach who's developing players.
Yeah.
And he's doing a great job, and he's making a name for himself. So and it's not, like I said, to me, I am here because I just want people to be aware. Like, let's just blow the lid off of this thing. I love hockey. I work in the hockey world. I see people from the CHL, scouts, or people from the everywhere. It's not like I want a bad relationship with them. It's just, it's hard to believe that all of this was happening while I was in the system, and there's so much happening that I was unaware of, and that I was never made aware of by the people that were responsible for me, responsible for my development, responsible for my well-being. Well, like, who else is responsible for me when I'm away from home? I'm a minor. I'm 16, 15, So yeah, that's
interesting. So we'll follow the development of that. One thing I want to touch on, I want your opinion on this. You've been following hockey. You have some hockey players, young hockey players in your circle as clients. What's your advice today in 2024 if they're 14, 15, 16 years old, if they're listening or their parents are listening? What's the landscape right now?
I would say try to seek advice from people that have been where you're trying to go. just try to speak with people and access information in order to make up your own mind. There are many, it's so different from when I was 14, 15 now with the social medias and the platforms and the podcast. There's so much information that's available. So I would say try to educate yourself before making a decision and start as early as possible. Mm-hmm. And this is my personal view. I believe, because I've went through it, I stopped playing hockey at 21. I was in the East Coast Hockey League. I was playing professional hockey, and I just didn't have the heart for it anymore, and I stopped early. And I also had the urgency to start my transition from hockey to just citizen and figuring out who I was outside of hockey and what I wanted to do. But I stopped playing at 21, but then, I'm 29, and when I was 25, 26, I wasn't playing every day, but I still got better every time I played, and I was still good. And that, what I want to get to is the point that you are in your 20s, you're still in like very important developmental years, not only as an athlete, but as a human being, as a man. And I remember when I went to the Anaheim Ducks development camp, I was 18, and all of the guys that were there were like 23, 24, 25, and I really felt like, oof, there's a gap.
Next level.
So,
yeah.
Sorry. So I do believe that planning to play hockey unprofessionally for as long as you can is the best way to develop without the pressure, without, having in mind that you're doing this for money. Mm-hmm. That this is because it brings, I don't mean to say you're playing for money, but I mean, your performance is what you rely on to get money and function as a valued member of society. So making sure you can play hockey as a student for as long as you can, like starting a professional career at 20 versus starting at 25, it makes a whole lot of difference. And that's something that I found very unfair. Is I played my last major junior hockey year, I was 19. So I still had 1 year to go. And it's that year at 19 that I got the puck in the face and then the imposed silence retreat. And then I started really, being confronted with how I was feeling about everything I had went through and what I was going through. So essentially at 20 years old, I decided to get out of that league. I was able to get a release. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky to get one. And I played in the BCHL. And had I not lost my eligibility to be a student athlete in the NCAA, my career would have been relaunched. But I had lost my eligibility. And now they're it is in the talks. It is in the air right now. They're talking about whether major junior hockey players could play, in the NCAA. If it's a student league, why not?
So you say educate yourself. Can you be more specific? I mean, I'm a parent. My kid is 15, 16 years old. He's promising. I mean, I could listen to all the podcasts and go to all the websites. Who's out there to sort of guide? I mean, can you guide those athletes? Are there other people or organizations that can guide them in a neutral fashion in the interest of the athlete?
Well, the problem, we founded with two of my partners, Elite 3 Agency, because we are advocates for the players. And we do not act as agents who just want to collect many, many players, hoping that one of them signs in the NHL to make bucks, We offer a service with a fee. And the services we offer are, to make sure to offer a structure and accompany the athlete in his development. And to us, that is a solution to the problems me and my partners have encountered with agents is, first of all, if you're thinking about going the NCAA route, you cannot have an agent. You can have a family advisor, and you have to pay him. So that's different. But essentially, this is the purpose of Elite Agency is we're former players and a father who supported his son, who paid a lot of money, went to different showcases, paid different advisors, and figured it out, gave a chance to Francis, my partner, who never played midget AAA, Bantam AA. He was never good enough in the Quebec system, wouldn't have made it. but ended up at Clarkson University his last college year and was MVP, and then was able to play pro from there. So this family, my two partners, the father and son, they figured it out, and they're basically coming back to just give the information that they were able to acquire, and that's what we do. Now, I want to say there are other, advisors who have your interest at heart. The problem is when you rely on the player's contract to make money, then it can be, you can be incentivized to maintain relationships with the teams and the organizations before advocating for your player. Because if they don't want him, or if he doesn't get paid by the team, maybe you can bring someone else. So that is one of the issues that we've identified, and that's why we offer a fee.
Yeah, I think, not just in this field, but in other fields, anybody who works exclusively for a fee, for a commission, may not always have your best interest, because it's the nature of the beast. You need to get paid to earn a living.
100%. And our business modeling is this one. If we work with a player during his minor hockey years, and he gets to pros, then if he wants us to represent him, is because we'll have done a good job and he trusts us. Yeah. And I think you have to find somebody that you trust, somebody that's been through what you're going through, that can help you out. Somebody that when you speak to them, you have a sense, you can feel that they have information and guidance to offer you. Basically, that is my advice.
Thomas, we've known each other for more than a year and a half. We're friends also, actually, disclosure. But I think you're very smart beyond your age. And I want you to explain a little bit what your approach is with your clients and with your organization. You're very much into mindfulness, into not just, you're not transactional with your clients. It's not about just having the best player and then pushing him forward, but you really get deep into the mindset, and at a crucial time of their psychological development. It's not just about becoming a better hockey player, but it's also, I think, about becoming a better human person, perhaps through hockey or through sport. Can you elaborate a little bit about your method and your approach?
Yeah, well, thank you. And basically, I had to go through the transition of, being a hockey player, having a social status, and then not playing anymore and having to figure it out. And then realizing that this commitment that I had made to my sports, to hockey specifically, this commitment, the hours and the energy and the time, what I had gained from it didn't really translate into the normal world. And so that was very difficult for me to, benefit from all of those years, that commitment, that engagement with the sport, and really reap, the fruits of it. And essentially my approach is just that. I believe that sports are probably the best things for children and for adolescents to engage with. I think it's, if we can provide a safe and fun environment for those players, then they can get to understand themselves and develop themselves. If we give them the opportunity, they can develop themselves personally first. And if we give them, the structure and the information, and we educate them, or we just, suggest to them to use their path in sports as a self-development path, to make sure that, everything they're putting in, the work they're putting in, they treat themselves as a human being first. And if they can very early on make, the link between the person and the athletic performance, if they can understand that when they're happy, when they're having fun, when they're working hard, when they're taking care of themselves, when they're eating right, when they're going to sleep, when they're taking care of their health, the performances go up, then all of this path of becoming an athlete is anchored in becoming an efficient, enhanced human being. And I think basically that is my approach, is to make sure... I mean,
sorry to interrupt you, but you're talking about 14, 15-year-old kids.
Yeah.
They're teenagers. Their hormones are coursing through their veins. I mean, do you find it challenging sometimes? Do you have resistance, or are they? What's your experience with it?
No.
No.
There are, I believe the new generation of athletes are way smarter than I was at that time. I think they have access to so much information. They live in a different era completely. They have an amazing awareness of not only themselves, but other people. They live in a time where well-being has been brought to new, technological advancement and new heights. I don't find it hard at all. And what I'm realizing is you still have to treat them as 14 and 15-year-olds, but you can offer them the information and then they can do whatever they want with it. But most of the time, they're very receptive. And it's basically suggesting to them that their hockey development is actually a personal development. And if they can focus on the personal development and using the sport as a pretext, they comprehend that very easily. And the results are amazing because, those kids learn basically what I do in our agency, I do the emotional intelligence coaching. So we meditate together. We learn how to calm our nervous system. We learn how to use vision, envisioning what type of athlete you want to be and how to creating that, emotional state associated with that vision. They are closer, it's easier for them than for us and older people because they're closer to that, those years where they can dream better.
They're still in their formative years.
Yes.
They're still malleable.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So basically, I just suggest to them, if you can learn about your emotions, discern your emotions, and use your emotions when you're playing to propel you, to give you energy instead of being, brought down by frustration and whatever it is, they do it better than I ever could. Just simply because they have the support, they have somebody that's there with them, and the information is being suggested. And if they're receptive, they are. If they're not, it's okay.
So you're actually giving the opportunity to a 14 or 15-year-old to meditate. That's something new to them, no? How do they respond to that?
It's a little bit,
awkward at the beginning,
alienating for them.
Yeah.
It's but they love it because they have this sensitivity, they meditate for 10 to 15 minutes and they're like, wow, I feel so good. I feel regenerated. They feel the difference. They're so sensitive. So yeah, they learn how to meditate, the same way that they learn to train and to eat. Basically, that's what we do in our agency. I do that part, the emotional intelligence coaching. Frank does everything that's with nutrition, biohacking, lifestyle habits, recovery. And Luke is more of the agent who does the representation, but at that age, what he does is the academic planification and strategy, and the parents are very involved also. We're very involved with the parents. So I receive just as much as them when I see them do it and then get on the ice and score a goal that and then come back to me. I saw myself score that goal the exact same way and I did it. And I'm like, damn. Wow. Can you imagine if I would have started doing that when I was 14? And yeah, like I said, it comes from my own experience, and those are solutions to the problems I have encountered. I had a really hard time, managing stress and pressure. But it's simply because, you can train at that. The earlier you start, the better you'll be, when the hard, stressful, situation comes.
Great. So Elite 3 Agency is your agency. Thanks a lot for sharing this with us. What I hear is that you're not just making better professional or future professional sports players, perhaps, but most importantly, better human beings.
Yeah.
Through sport, which really connects with me.
That's the goal, and we do not choose the players; they choose us. There will come a time when, we won't, because of our business model, we won't be able to work with hundreds and hundreds of players. Unless, something happens, something extraordinary happens, but
sure.
They choose us. And basically, we want to make sure that those years are good memories for them. and that they can use those years. They can learn to commit to a sport the same way that they'll be able to commit to a relationship. They'll be able to commit to their studies, whatever it is.
Their business, their profession, eventually.
Their profession, whatever. Yeah, 100%.
Actually, most of them will not become professional hockey players. They'll have a life.
Yeah, most of them won't.
Yeah.
And also, we're introducing them to the truth of sports, meaning they're businesses. So you want to make it as a professional, start envisioning yourself as a brand. Start envisioning the image of yourself as the athlete who's getting paid for his talent, but for the culture that he brings in a company. They're on social media. They understand that very easily, very early.
Yeah.
And basically, we're encouraging them to dream.
And you're giving them the tools to do it.
Yeah.
Famous quote from Billie Jean King is when she got involved into propelling women tennis, and she says it even to this day, is you got to know the business of your sport. Because if you don't, you just become, you're just a player with a small p.
Yeah.
And you're just a pawn in the big game, and you're losing everything.
100%. And if you know how to do that with sports, you'll be able to do that with any work environment, any job. They learn how to bring value to your team.
Yeah.
Bring value on the ice, bring value off the ice, offer your personality. And also we believe that hockey is the most old school mentality. It's starting to change because the structures are coming down. But we believe that the people want to see the players, and the players should have, the freedom to be themselves and to be different and to showcase their personalities. And I believe that would be good for the business of hockey overall. So at one point, the organizations won't have a chance, won't have a choice to just allow the players to be human beings first. And I think that would be amazing for the community as well.
Yeah. And you need to build them through the teenage years, because once they're 20, 21, 22, it's mostly too late.
Yes, 100%. And we see it. And I've during that class action, I was in contact with a lot of members. I also was invited to testify at the Canadian Heritage Committee in Ottawa. And so I heard a lot of testimonials there as well. And, people do not necessarily have a good time right now in hockey, and they certainly have hard times, overcoming them. Mm-hmm. And it's not the majority, it's not everyone, but it's there. And I think we should look at the industry very closely to make sure that the sports are safe for children and adolescents to engage in, for sure. Or else what? We'll leave them inside on their computer, on the freaking screen.
Yeah. I want to finish off on one question with you, Thomas. Is there any word of advice that you'd like to give our listeners on getting involved with sport? Not just teenagers, but also adults, and all the mindfulness and the approach that you have that I found really interesting.
I would love to. And I'm going to try to not take too much time and make it straight to the point.
It's a podcast, so you have an hour if you want, or you have 5 minutes, whatever.
Yeah, I believe sports offer, the opportunity for young girls and young boys to be young girls and young boys. Now, the only time I find myself these days with a bunch of men, with a brotherhood, being exposed. There's a saying that I love that says, steel sharpens steel. And I believe it's very, very important as men to rely on other men to sharpen ourselves, to make ourselves better, to introspect, to reflect on each other and be able to grow exponentially. So sports, to me today, when I go play hockey on Sunday afternoon, it is probably the only time in my life where I'm with 20 other men. And yes, I love the game of hockey. I love, the physical exercise, but it is very clear that what also I'm getting and benefiting from is being with other men. And sports offer that opportunity to, for men to be with men, for women to be with women, to mix it up sometimes. But it keeps, the sense of fraternity that I do not find anywhere else.
That's real interesting because, I mean, we could go on for a long time, but in today's discourse in society, we don't talk enough, I think, about the tribe that we men, and usually it's viewed negatively. Men together will do things that are negative, but the girls' night out, for instance, is liberation and is viewed positively. So I think that we have ancestrally, we've evolved as human beings with rituals for men that are important. And the Jewish religion has that with the bar mitzvah, with progressing from being a child to a young man. I think that we've lost sight of those rituals for men. I think that we need to bring it back to the forefront. Obviously in a positive way, not to bully other people, because it could go in the wrong way, and it has gone in the wrong way. But we need to talk about that, and we need to connect as men, not just adolescent, but also as adults. We forget that, and it's important.
And I believe sports, they should the oversight should come from educated men, in the sense that they would provide an environment in which young men and young girls, young boys and young girls can develop themselves using each other as a reflection and learning about what's good for them, what's good for the team, what to do, what not to do, what helps, what doesn't help, how to bring value. And essentially, elite sports give athletes the chance to be close to other people who are 100% engaged in their purpose, in their goal. And that in itself is a form of guideline as to how you can conduct yourself or not. I believe we have to create an ecosystem, with an intention in it, which is to offer a safe environment and to provide, the youth with an opportunity to develop themselves. And then the ecosystem will take care of itself. It'll become its own thing. It just needs to be, supervised with people who do it from the heart. I do not think there needs oversight. Essentially, we need to trust our hearts. And just like in nature, you put some grass and some dirt and then some seeds, and then
it grows. Yeah.
It grows, and then the bees come, and then the insects come, and then what do you know? You have an ecosystem that works perfectly well. Yeah. I think it's the same thing with sports.
Good. Thank you very much, Thomas, for your time. It was fun.
Yes, for sure.
So we'll certainly invite you for another podcast in the future, and we'll go in different directions.
100%. Thank you.
Good day.